Cracking everybody. New video. So shout out to Daniel K, one of my long-time subscribers on my big channel. Today in the comment sections, right now it's actually midnight. I just finished the live, still kind of wide awake, and I figured, you know what, let me go ahead and knock out this video. So this video was recommended by Daniel K. Okay, this is what's his name? Stuart Atwood, I think is his name. And in response to my videos about my reaction videos to Wes Watson, Daniel said I should really check this guy out. Now, I'm going to tell you guys that I've already seen a little bit. I'm not going to start at the beginning. This dude right here, the title of this video is 34 Years in Prison, Part 1, Jamie Morgan Kane. True crime podcast. So I've already heard a little bit about what he has to say. I'm gonna start at 1 hour 19 minutes. This dude has a lot of wind. Loves hearing himself talk. Um, Apparently he didn't have a shirt, so he's in a slingshot at an interview. You guys, I want you to know right now. This guy said he was, I guess, got busted in '83 and went to prison in 1984. That's important. If I get to whatever he starts talking about, he went to prison in 1984. Okay. He's going to be talking about organizations that I will never talk about, but let's just see what this killer has to say.
And I'm 30 years old. I owned a motorcycle repair restoration shop.
Mm-hmm.
I was road captain for a motorcycle club,
Yeah.
and I'm a Vietnam veteran Marine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I get to the prison, and at that time when I went to prison, there was only two maximum security prisons, only two prisons as they called it, Folsom and San Quentin.
Yes.
And then they had 9 men's institutions. Those are all medium and lower.
Okay.
And they were like California Technical Facility or California Training Facility or California Men's Colony
Yeah.
or California Medical Facility. And they were things like that.
I saw the Johnny Cash videos.
Right. And there was only 36,000 people in prison when I first went in.
36,000. Yeah.
But I'm going to go to one of the big houses because I'm coming in with a murder and
And
also...
what year is this now when you go to the big
1983.
house? 83.
Well, I actually go in 84. I get arrested in 83. I actually get sent to prison on February 27th, 1984.
Yeah.
So I get sent to Vacaville because Vacaville is the California Medical Facility, and it's reception for everything Northern California.
Yeah.
California Institution for Men, or what's called Chino, is Southern California reception.
Okay.
So I get up there, I get put in a cell.
Mm-hmm.
It's not much bigger than, 2.5 loos put together, basically.
This is a
I know this isn't like anything major, but um, why are these guys sitting so close and having a crotch off? Are they having a crotch off? I feel like they are. I've never even seen a crotch off before, but they're aiming them at each other. They're aiming them at each other. Woo.
holding cell right
No,
now.
it's a regular
This
cell.
is your cell.
It's
now.
got two.
Okay.
It's got bunk beds and a toilet,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Window. And one of the things guys in county jail tell me was you never ask guys how much time you're doing,
Yeah.
that kind of things. And don't. And they tell you don't do drugs in prison, don't join the gangs in prison, don't gamble in prison,
Yeah.
don't mess with the homosexuals in prison.
Yeah.
Those all bring you troubles.
Yeah.
Well, since none of those were my problems on the street, the only issue I ever had as far as a vice was my motorcycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of motorcycles on the yard in prison, so he's probably gonna have a lot of problems.
So, that was my go-to thing. So I get in there. Well, they tell me it's going to take up to 90 days to process you through.
Mm-hmm.
But I come in, I'm going through it, and it was really funny because prison reception wasn't too much different than military reception.
Yeah.
You go in, you get naked, they give you clothes, you go to the place where they tell you to go. But I'm 3 days into my prison sentence in reception, waiting for orientation, whatever's going to come along. And right after breakfast that morning, which they had breakfast 5:30, and it was like 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
the door slides open because he had pneumatic door type things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the captain of the institution and the chief medical officer. And they go, "You were a corpsman, weren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "We need your skills. We need you to come work for us as a surgical tech."
Wow. Right away.
Right away, 3 days into prison on a fresh murder charge, they want me working as a surgical tech.
Yeah.
They tell me out and they tell me, "Here's the deal. You're still orientation, but we're going to move you to the main line. You're going to be wearing blues instead of greens.
Yeah.
You're going to be like a mainline inmate. You're living in a mainline housing. You have all mainline privileges, but you still have to do your orientation stuff.
Yeah.
But you're going to work in the hospital."
I don't know anything about that, but he said he was in Vacaville. I heard back in the days they would have stuff like that. So I can't say anything about that. But his stories, I haven't. This part it was new to me, except for when he went to prison. This is about as far as I got earlier. Skipping around.
Hospital and G2 surgery and G1 ward. I said, "Not a problem." So I go over there. That afternoon, about 4 hours after they'd seen me, I've got my hands in some guy's guts while we're taking tumors out of a guy's stomach doing a laparotomy.
Gosh.
I'm working as a surgical nurse or surgical technician for the doctor
Yeah.
on an inmate.
Wow.
The very next morning, they gave me a client list, and they tell me, "Okay, you know about phlebotomy, right?" And I said, "Certainly." Drawing blood. And I go, "Here's your client list." Okay, I got a client list. So it's got guys' names and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got sitting there, and I got all tubes, and I got the needles, and I'm sitting there and waiting. In walks this correctional sergeant, and he rolls my sleeve and goes, "Okay, let's get this over with." And I'm looking at him and go, "Yeah, sure." Because I figure he's clowning me, you know? And he's like, no, that's my name right there, number 1 on the list. I need to have this done. I got to have my physical done.
Right.
So then I realized I'm taking blood out of correctional officers to turn around and give to an inmate lab tech to run for their physicals.
Strange.
Because at that time, inmates ran the prison.
Yeah.
We were surgical techs, x-ray techs, lab techs, certified nursing assistants. We ran trust. We
Yeah.
ran the meal room. We ran records. We ran the kitchen,
Wow.
warehouses. We were all the clerks.
Yeah.
You need something, you came to us. You know. So I stuck the needles in all these correctional officers' arms and drew their blood that day.
Yeah.
And then it went on to that. And then when I went to work wards, my job was to go and check guys for bed sores and treat them, change bandages, and in some cases, actually give medications
Yeah.
because they didn't really have that many certified quality nurses that could do it. But I was a corpsman, so I knew what I was doing. So and I did that for roughly about 2.5 months before I got my transfer. And I was supposed to go to San Quentin, but I ended up being transferred to Old Folsom because San Quentin was close to intake.
Yeah.
And then that started my time in Folsom. And the very first thing is like on that they have this really famous picture of Folsom. It's the East Gate. It's got a gun tower and it's got this big barred gate come in. It's called East Gate. And when you drove through, you drive through on this little gray bus that just fit under there.
Yeah.
Kind of school bus type thing. Called the Gray Goose. And when you came in, you'd be in the little Sally Port and you got to hear those big iron gates slam behind you.
Yeah.
And there was a sign above the other gate that says, "This is the end of the world." So then you drive through that and you drive down and around, come back up, and you pull up on the main yard.
Yeah.
And whenever buses were coming, they would have no yard that day. And they would let you out right there at the R&R, the receiving and releasing unit.
Yeah.
And so you come out and you get in there, and then they had you line up, and then they bring out these things, you used to call them 103B cards. And they had every bit of information about you: county commitment, charges,
Yeah.
age. You know, oftentimes if you had parents, they tell you who your parents were and all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they would give that to an inmate clerk. Now the inmate clerks now know who you are, where you're from, and stuff.
So, the whole
So
yard
they
knows.
know who to tell that so and so's homeboy
Yeah.
from the counties and all that stuff is there.
Right.
Well, I fell out of Fresno County,
Okay.
but I never claimed Fresno because I wasn't born in Fresno. I just fell out of Fresno.
Yeah.
And so we're out there, and kind of my very first introduction to this kind of a prison thing here. Because there were incidents that happened at Vacaville. That's where I saw my first in-house prison killing, was at Vacaville.
Right.
But in Folsom, I'm there less than 45 minutes. We're standing outside.
Yeah.
And there's me, and there's this one guy who's very girled up, got long hair, got lipstick and nail polish, because he was trying to keep from going to Folsom by being a girl,
Yeah.
so he could stay down at Vacaville.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of other guys after us. So we're all standing there, and right by there's a count gate called 5 Count.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're sitting there, this sergeant's walking back and forth, and he's saying, "I want to welcome you to Folsom State Prison." And at Folsom State Prison, we do things our way. Folsom State Prison was built in 1880, built from the granite. This was a quarry.
I'm gonna probably fast forward a lot of this stuff. I think I don't know. I feel like I've been watching this for an hour.
Convict blood and split. And as he's talking to us,
Yeah.
all of a sudden this count gate slams open, and there's a guard that stands right there. But he's watching what's happening with us. All of a sudden this gate slams open. This little Mexican guy comes running out of this gate. Just a couple steps behind him is this great big Mexican guy with this 14-inch knife in his hand.
Jeez.
And the little guy turns his head 1 minute.
Whenever people have exact measurements in their story, I don't believe it. Maybe there was a stabbing that day. I doubt it was right. It was there where he was at, and I guarantee it wasn't a 14-inch blade, unless later somebody saw the paper. I don't know. 14-inch stone. He spotted it.
Minute to see what's going on. He sees us.
Yeah.
Turns for a minute and ends up slamming into a pole right there at the corner of the yard. So he didn't make the track. He hit the yard fencing.
Yeah.
And the big guy ran up and stabbed him about 7 times, threw the knife down before any of the gunners could lock and load. Because we got full armed gunners with, at that time, shotguns and Mini 14s.
Yeah.
And they had Mini 14s out because we were out there being interviewed. And the guy who was planning to be a girl suddenly faints and falls right out. And we're all standing there. And the sergeant with us, he doesn't even, he looks over at what's going on as other officers are responding.
Yeah.
But he doesn't leave us. But in the same point, he doesn't break sentence. He turns around and goes, "And as you notice, at Folsom State Prison, we have unscheduled extracurricular activities happening all the time. Okay, guys, let's go on inside R&R."
Wow.
And
How did you feel inside?
Well, honestly, my first thought was to run towards the guy.
And
Because I saw him.
help him recover.
And so, but when he says all this, we're suddenly pushed. And I'm the
Yeah.
first guy by the door, so I get in first.
Yeah.
So, moments later, they walk us over. We get our issue of blues. They stamp our name and number in them. Walk us over, and I go to one building, which the first tier and second tier were orientation. You had to go there for 2 weeks
Yeah.
to see if you could make it to the yard. Was there any funny stuff? If you were, sex crimes or all that kind of weird stuff. So I'm there, and a few hours later, because they'd already got the word to the Fresno car that I was a Fresno boy.
Yeah.
And as you know, in prisons, cars like to build their bodies. They like as many people of their people.
Yeah.
And then it goes into bigger cars after that. But anyway, so I'm there and I'm walking around in my little cell, getting used to it. And I'm single cell because, we didn't have that many people. And all of a sudden I hear this guy go, "Hey, homeboy." I turn around, this big blonde-haired guy, long hair, beard, standing there, and he goes, "You're from Fresno, right?" And I already see that I don't want to know this guy to begin with. So I look at him, I go, "Konas to Tumakara, Jiugwichmashin, and Manaskimi, Ernakte tu, Shah." And the guy looks at me, kind of blinks like Jabba the Hutt a couple of times, turns and looks down the tier and goes, "Are you sure he's white? He doesn't even speak English." And then the guy walks away.
Yeah. So that's going to get back to the shot call.
Well, it goes back to the shot callers and everybody else, and they're all like, because now they're checking the guy who gave them the information.
Right.
"Are you sure?"
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that type of thing. So 3 days go by, and basically,
They can't figure you out.
well, nobody's come by for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
But there's a Portuguese guy up above me, and we're talking through the vent. And we're talking in English, 'cause I don't really speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
I speak a little Spanish, but not in Portuguese. Well, guys hear me speaking English. So
Man, that guy does some weird thing with his mouth. I don't know, but it's tripping me out. But I don't even know. I'm gonna try to do this. This thing seems like it's gonna be long as hell.
next thing I know, this really, really big guy shows up. The guy's like, 6'8", 300 some odd pounds, black hair,
This is a white gang member.
big white guy. Yeah.
Is it Aryan Brotherhood?
Well, it's all part of the Aryan Brotherhood at that time. Because at Folsom at the time, you basically had only two factions of, quote, whites. You had the Aryan Brotherhood
Yeah,
and you had the bikers.
yeah,
And some bikers did run with the Aryan Brotherhood, particularly if they were, weren't really from a real substantial club or something like that.
yeah.
But we had Hell's Angels on the yard and stuff like that.
So they had their own clique, separate from
Yeah,
the AB.
I mean, they would sometimes align, but that was at their choosing, not the AB's choosing, basically.
Okay.
But
I really want to speak on that, but I don't speak on that stuff. But this dude is crazy. Like,
at this point, I'm not claiming anything at all. I'm
Yeah.
just anyway. So the guy comes and I do the same thing, and he goes, "No. I know you can speak English." So I look at him. I tell him, "Yeah, when it's as a courtesy."
Yeah.
I said, "But English is not my first language." I said, "Gaelic is my first language
Wow.
because Martha was from Ireland, and until I was almost 6, that was the first language I learned, and she
Yeah.
called it mommy speak."
Yeah.
So we had a language of our own.
Mm-hmm.
But then looking like me, and at that time, I had brown hair with copper, auburnish coloring it, blue eyes.
Yeah.
In Arizona, speaking only Gaelic, kind of would front us off.
Yeah.
So I had to learn English. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where they came about. So anyway, but he goes, well, what are you? And I never claimed white at any given time in my life. If anything, I claimed Celt.
Yeah.
So I told him, well, I'm a Celt.
Yeah.
And he's like, the hell's a Celt? And I told him, well, like the Irish, the Scots, and they go, oh, I'm part Irish. I said, wait a minute, but you don't know what a Celt is, and you don't know Gaelic.
Yeah.
Oh no, man, that's really hard shit. I don't understand, I don't know.
so, in the beginning of the interview, he said he's English. So now he's a Celt. He's Scottish or Irish. He said in the beginning of the video, if you guys watch this yourself, he says he has a little tiny bit of Irish in him. This is actually, hopefully you guys are going to make it through this because, like I said, it was midnight when I started. It's after 12:10. This guy is hard for me to listen to, but I'm going to go a little bit longer and let's see what other true crime he's going to talk about.
I'll tell you. So he goes like, well, when you come out, the guys want to talk to you.
Yeah, but they do.
Oh, okay, whatever, And he's like, so you're from Fresno? I said, no. He goes, it says on the car. I said, I fell out of Fresno. I'm not from Fresno.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, where are you from? I said, I lived, 8 years in Fresno, 8 years in San Diego, and most of my life in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, but I've been told I was born on the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
Which is why my background say Manx bread, because all my ink is pre-prison.
Yeah.
But some of my ink was done by guys who learned their trade in prison.
Right.
But they did it on the streets using prison-style style guns.
Yeah.
That was cheaper to make than buying ones.
Yeah, well, that makes sense why they look so bad.
So you're at Folsom, Aryan Brotherhood. They're like, Celtic? Who is this guy?
Yeah. So,
I don't know. Look, this is a problem that I have with civilians, people that never lived that life. This guy's got a huge smile. He's a European, obviously. I believe he had Wes Watson on several times. But it's just so weird that people that have never been around the men that they're speaking of, they throw these names around and smile like that, where if they knew those men, they wouldn't say those names, and they damn sure wouldn't be saying it with a big smile on their face. They'd whisper it, and they'd only whisper it to somebody that they trust. These aren't names and of the organizations and those men that are a part of them. Those aren't things that you just talk out loud about.
I get cleared to go to the yard because there's nothing wrong with anything in my background.
Yeah.
I get out there, and the yard's divided up. You got this set of bleachers, steps and seats belong to the white area. This one here is the the Mexican Mafia's area.
Yeah.
This here is the Black Guerrilla family area.
Mhm.
This is the Bloods and Crips areas are over here.
Mhm.
And you got the Paisas area, and then you got the others, and the others at that time encompassed all Asians, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, and actually at that time even Central and South Americans could fall under others if they wanted to.
Okay.
And so I go out.
How many people on the yard do you estimate?
Probably about at this time there's probably about 250 to 300.
And how many whites?
Probably about maybe about 35.
Okay.
So I walk out, and 3 guys come from the white group over to me, and they said, "Hey, this guy Wesley wants to talk to you."
Is that the shot caller?
He's one of the shot callers.
Yeah.
He's not the shot caller. He's one of the lieutenant
Okay.
shot callers, I
Yeah.
think. So I go over, and they're on the weight pile, and so there's more whites on the weight pile, and the weight, same thing. You got them divided up among different races, whose weights are what. Nobody
Yeah.
can share weights, and this was a big thing for me in prison, was that you weren't allowed to share things. You couldn't take food off of another race's plates. All these little knick-knack things. Because on the streets I was never racist, and I never had these issues, and I couldn't really understand. And then I always threw them for a tizzy when like they talk about food. Can't take food off a black man's plate. And I said, but a black man put the food on your plate. And that was beyond their understanding. Like,
He didn't tell anybody that. He may have said that in his head, but I guarantee you he wasn't getting smart with people like that. These are the things that I trip out on. This guy, whatever his name is, who the host of the show, I just can't remember. I'm tired right now, and this guy's making me more tired by the lie. I mean, by the words. But I don't know why they I don't know why they promote this type of stuff. Everybody has heard of and knows of when they get into this type of stuff. I would think this guy did some research and would know that amount of violence that the men that they're so frivolously speaking of committed. So how could anyone think this dude, a fish that's not affiliated with anything, is talking to people that type of way? You're not going to be a smart mouth without your mouth getting busted open. Not in prison, man. Then wholesome at that? Not back then. Not in 1984.
I couldn't comprehend that.
Or usually if they run out of drugs, they'll go to the other
Yeah,
races to get
and that's
the
why I used to
drugs.
tell them, I said,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Here, let me understand this. I can't take perfectly good food he hasn't touched off his plate, but you'll shoot drugs that came out of a black man's rear end.
Does anybody believe that?
So that's another set of, okay, where it's a different thing, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're walking over, and Wesley there, and Wesley's not driving iron. He's sitting there like he's in holding court.
Yeah.
And he's got like the biggest buffed up white guys around him.
They've got the Nazi tattoos and stuff.
And he's got the lightning bolts and swastikas, and he's like that, and he's just, So we understand you have an identity crisis. And I told him, no, I don't have an identity crisis. I know exactly who the hell I am. I said, but some of these guys that are part Irish don't know what they are, and they're kind of looking at me and stuff. Because what a lot of people don't know is the Aryan Brotherhood had 2 different factions in it.
Yeah.
There was the Irish side and the German side.
Yeah.
And before they were the Aryan Brotherhood, they were actually the Bluebirds.
Okay.
Was the original white gang was called Bluebirds.
Okay.
And so the old guys have a bluebird tattooed usually on their bicep or on their ankle.
Right.
And then they became, and they had a guy named Bulldog who actually, when they were coming together as Aryan Brotherhood, this guy Bulldog was the guy that became the leader of the Irish side, and this other guy became the German side. But
So were you in early enough to actually meet George?
Oh, I met Bulldog.
People who started the.
Oh yeah, I met Bulldog a couple of years later at another prison.
And did they tell you why they started it?
Well, it started as originally as a protection.
So I don't know if I'm not getting what he's saying. 1984. Okay, I'm just gonna say that 1984. He wasn't there for the founding of anything, but Mr. Sean Atwood, who keeps throwing these things out there, I highly doubt they're even gonna let me put this video out. But I don't know, man. I just don't get how people so frivolously throw. I mean, this guy right here, I don't like him. Honestly, I don't like him. I don't like if he was in prison and he fell in 1983 and did all that time, he would have had, in my opinion, a completely different way of speaking. And I don't care if he's in Europe, because this is probably in Europe. I don't care if he's in Europe. You should still speak with respect. You know, there's reasons why I'm not going to get into.
Protection thing, because
Yeah.
whites tended to come in and immediately get victimized by blacks and Hispanics, because there were a lot more blacks and Hispanics in prisons.
Always the numbers with the most
Yeah.
pick on the least.
Yeah, and particularly if you came out of the Southern California, LA County, blacks run that. And if you go in there, not a single white boy ever comes to prison with a pair of shoes from LA County.
Yeah.
They just automatically lose their shoes. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
But so
From Fresno. He's never been to the LA County jail. And yet he knows who runs it. It is true that for many years, I've heard the stories. I'm not from LA, but I've done time with so many dudes from LA. Whites were. I'll put it like this: I knew white dudes that told me that when they were in the LA County, that if they saw another white dude and he didn't have a black eye or his face wasn't busted up, then he knew he was a punk. Because dudes were like, man, I stayed marked up when I was in there because I stayed fighting because we had to. But listen to this guy.
anyway, but so Wesley's telling me, he goes, so and I said, well, look. I said, I don't really need anything. He goes, what do you mean you don't need anything? And he goes, what about protection? I said, I do all right. He goes, no, you don't understand. I said, no, I do understand. I said, I do my little program. I said, nothing gets you guys. You guys do whatever the hell you guys have been doing.
Yeah.
I said, but I got 13 years to do, and I plan to go home to my wife and son.
So you're trying to be independent.
Yeah, and so he's like, what? And they're kind of confused. So he goes,
I don't buy it. I don't believe in anything this dude has to say. They're kind of confused. They're not confused. You're talking about men that break men. Men that break men. I feel like if this conversation, anyone were to ever react or respond the way this guy's saying he reacted and responded, at the least, they would have got punched in the mouth. Um, More than likely, it would have been worse. The hand that punched him would have had something in it. But like, I don't get like, I don't know. This stuff is mind blowing.
we got to talk about this. So they kind of waved me off. So I go out and I start walking the yard.
Yeah.
And the thing about Folsom is they have a track.
Right.
And I knew about this track because this track was.
I'm done. If you guys want me to continue doing a review of this true crime, I'll try to come back. This dude's putting me to sleep. This is, I don't know how long. I think this is 4 years old. This interview. Just the fact that he came on the show. I do my videos in a slingshot, in a black tank top, right? But I'm here in my place. I would never go on to another show and dress how how they may think a convict would dress. I think that's what it is. More power to the dude. Good luck talking about stuff that you shouldn't be talking about. And I don't know. Anyways, man, that's the video. I can't even go any further with this. That's the video. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. Right? I'm out.